to never really define myself as like my race, but there's always those days, something like the first day of school, and you know, the teacher goes down the roll, and of course my name starts with an A, so I was always the first to, you know, be called out. And there was always the mispronunciation of my name because my real name is Ali. And so that was probably like one of the big things, you know, like it was a big reminder that, you know, that's who I am and that is my legal name. Yes, I go by AJ just because it's something easier to pronounce, easier to say, easier to remember. And so, you know, that was probably something that always like kind of reminded me, like, yes, this is your name, yes, you have a Middle Eastern name. Neither of my parents were religious, and the only like practices that like we ever like really celebrated or were tradition were like just like your typical holidays. But at my grandmother's house on my father's side, she was a Christian. So if I ever stayed with her, I always remember going to church with her. And her house is like filled with crosses and pictures of Jesus. But then my grandfather, on my dad's side as well, he is Muslim, and there's been a number of times where whenever I'd stay at his house, I'd be going to the mosque. So I sort of saw growing up like two different religions. I didn't really understand either of them, and you know, I just kind of went because I was at either of their houses. But besides that, you know, my parents weren't religious, so that wasn't really a thing in my household. One of the biggest things that I always knew at my grandpa's house was that they recognized Ramadan and they fasted for the whole month. So there were several occasions where I would be at his house and I'd stay there for the weekend, and everyone in the house was fasting. So I, you know, like I said, like I wasn't grown up in a religious setting, and so I didn't want to be the one out of place to eat, so I just sort of, you know, did what everyone else was doing. Another thing that, you know, I always felt out of place was, you know, if I was ever there and during Ramadan, is they'd always pray. And that was something, you know, I never really do. I don't ever really pray at all. And so, you know, you break your fast and then you go and you pray on the rug. And that was something I didn't know. I was unfamiliar with it, and I was just kind of standing there, not sure what to do. When I was younger and growing up in a post 9/11 world, I felt really ashamed just because of the picture that society had painted for Middle Easterns. Knowing deep down that I was half Middle Eastern kind of brought a lot of shame to me and who I was. And so growing up, I was always like ashamed to ever even say that I was half Middle Eastern. As I grew up and as I, you know, started to meet more people that were Middle Eastern, more people of those races from the Middle East, I learned that, you know, they behave in a specific way, they talk in a certain way, and that was different from how I had acted and how I had spoken. And I didn't speak with a Middle Eastern accent. I don't know how to speak Arabic, and it was weird because, you know, I was slowly coming to terms with, you know, accepting my heritage and accepting being Middle Eastern, but at the same time I felt this sort of disconnect, like, you know, I really don't know too much about the heritage. I don't know the language. I don't know the food that they eat. And so not only was I like sort of coming to terms with, you know, who I was, but I was also coming to terms with, you know, what is it like to be Middle Eastern. If I was raised with those practices, yeah, then it might be a different story, and I would probably be a different person, but the way I was raised sort of formed who I am today. I can appreciate the practices and those traditions, but that's not something that I feel as though I need to practice.